Hi there, I'm Christine Zips with Wired Schools, joined here with my co-host Nicola Lake, also co-founder of Wired Schools. And today we are welcoming our guest experts, Elizabeth Kelley and Risa Suzuki. We'll be joining them and sharing their bios here in just a minute. So we'd like to start off with sharing that our goal is not, we have nothing to sell, we are not even looking to change any opinions, and we ask that nothing more than hopefully that we will pique some curiosity with this presentation. We're sharing some excellent information about a topic that might be brand new to some of you, might be very familiar to some others, depending on how much you've looked into this topic of the smart home technology. And because they don't tell us much about that there is a dark side, that there is something that we need to consider. But so we'll be delving into the potential health impacts as well as security and safety issues around this topic. So I think we're ready to get started here. And I would like to start with Elizabeth Kelley. She'll be presenting first. And Elizabeth Libby Kelley, she serves as the executive director of the Electromagnetic Safety Alliance. She also directs the International EMF Scientist Appeal Campaign to the United Nations, now signed by 247 scientists in 42 nations. She has a master's degree in health administration from the University of Southern California and has worked on public health and public policy issues for over 40 years. She worked as an analyst in the Office of the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C., after having been selected to enter government service as a U.S. Presidential Management Fellow. For over 2 decades, she's been dedicated to EMF research and advocacy. She promotes policies and practices that offer greater health protection from non-ionizing radiation sources. She places a high priority on raising awareness about electromagnetic hypersensitivity. She consults on EMF-related policies, makes EMF presentations, has coordinated the development of several EMF appeals, and is often interviewed by local and national news media. So we will invite Libby to get started with her presentation. Elizabeth, I understand you're prepared to speak with us today about the science behind this, as well as some public health implications and other details. So we're very excited to learn more. You officially have the floor.
Thank you, Christine. The heart of my message today is a call for public health protection for our children, for those who are most vulnerable among us, for those who are electrically hypersensitive. They are the bodies of evidence right now. And more, with the proliferation of wireless technologies, we are all being exposed, and there could be harm. So I intend to talk about the big picture on voluntary and involuntary human exposure to electromagnetic fields. There's a massive development, a massive deployment right now of wireless technologies for communications, which is global in nature and which is proliferating at an unheralded rate. And this exposure condition is capable of causing great harm. I'm going to present some scientific evidence that documents and justifies the concerns being raised by parents, teachers, scientists, medical doctors, health practitioners, and public advocates like me. I'm very grateful to Dr. Magda Havas and to Dr. Cindy Russell for sharing some of their slides with me that I'm going to be using today. Finally, I'm going to briefly address the question of what makes a smart and a healthy building. So without further ado, let's begin.
This is the electromagnetic spectrum, which illustrates all the sources of natural and man-made electromagnetic radiation applications that affect life on Earth. On the far left are the natural sources of electromagnetic fields, the Earth's magnetic field, which is also known as the geomagnetic field. That's the field that extends from the Earth's interior out into space, where it meets the solar wind, a stream of charged particles emanating from the sun, shown as visible light in the middle of the spectrum, right between non-ionizing and ionizing radiation. The Earth's magnetic field is generated by an interaction between rotation in the planet's core and electrical currents. The field then creates the magnetosphere, which acts like a force field, protecting the Earth from the charged particles of solar wind and cosmic rays that would otherwise strip away the upper atmosphere and cause harmful radiation exposure on the surface of the Earth. The Earth's magnetic field plays a very important role for all living things. Life has evolved in it. Without this field, life would not be the same. It would not be possible. Because humans exist largely of water, they need an intact natural geomagnetic field. Life has evolved in these fields, and birds and fish and the tides depend upon them. However, the communication of living beings with the natural geomagnetic field is being influenced by artificial sources known as electrosmog and natural disturbance fields, or Earth rays. Today, my presentation will focus on the part of the spectrum called radio frequency. The radio frequency band includes applications such as AM/FM radio, television, cell towers, cell phones, microwave ovens, smart meters, Wi-Fi, cordless phones, satellite dishes, etc. Traditionally, the physics view has been that radio frequency transmissions do not produce enough energy to knock an electron off its orbit and causing heating of tissue, thereby, as ionizing radiation does. But these high-frequency signals are communicated to the cells and membranes of living tissues, triggering biochemical changes without heat. This was shown back in the 1940s, when during World War II, the U.S. Office of Naval Research began reporting high cancer rates among naval personnel who were highly exposed to radar on Navy ships. Since then, the over 250 scientists who have signed the International EMF Scientist Appeal, who have published over 2,000 studies showing that exposure to radio frequency transmissions can cause cancers, problem with reproduction, neurological diseases and disorders, including a health condition called electromagnetic hypersensitivity. The pulse-modulated wireless signals used by the telecommunications industry for communications are known to be particularly invasive of all living things. About 25 years ago, a man named Jeremy Rifkin wrote a book called The Third Industrial Revolution: How Lateral Power is Transforming Energy, the Economy, and the World. He said at that time, the great economic revolutions in history occur when new communications technologies converge with new energy systems. New energy regimes are created. And then we saw the beginning of fourth generation wireless, which is now shifting over to a fifth generation wireless, and the smart wireless digital world. When I first started working on this issue, I used to hear statements about this. This was in the mid-1990s. This is a gold rush, calling to investors, of course. Don't be left behind, telling people to be prepared for big changes ahead. They advised people who were involved in the manufacture, distribution, or sale of this technology, i.e. wireless carriers, to look for mutual benefit, to do outreach and marketing to all economic sectors, to overcome opposition with philanthropy. And the vision was broadband wireless that would be interoperable, connected, installed in a stealth-like manner, and overcomes the last mile. Well, this technology has expanded and grown over the last 25 years to the point that, yes, it seems to be achieving these goals, and yes, it is overcoming the last mile when you realize that the 5G small cell antennas and towers that are going in on right-of-way easements in our front yards are going to be overcoming the last mile by being able to transmit very high radio frequency transmissions known as millimeter waves through the walls of our homes to bring us wireless television, internet, and the telephone. This seems to be getting out of hand. Here's a picture of from a collection by Eric Pickersgill of a couple in bed. They're looking away from each other. They're looking into their hands. What are they looking at? Well, the photographer deliberately took that cell phone out of their hands, but this is the behavior they exhibit. And this is the behavior people are exhibiting, and the way they're treating each other, basically ignoring people who are in the room, is very common now. What's going on here? And why are we exposing infants to microwave radiation? This new diaper has sensors built into it. So when the baby wets the diaper, the owner of the cell phone will get a message, change the diaper, it's wet. Does that replace loving attention by parents? And this bedroom, a child's bedroom, now looks out to a 70-foot 4G, 5G macro tower that was built 2 months after they bought the house. They're very concerned. The parents of these two toddlers just don't know what to do. They've measured the signals. They're looking at shielding materials. They know they can't afford the house. They can't afford to sell the house. And they're very worried about their children playing outside. This is not right. Cell towers cause health effects. 8 of 10 epidemiology studies showed adverse neurobehavioral symptoms when cell towers are less than 1,500 feet away. And these symptoms are occurring with exposure conditions that are under the current FCC safety guidelines. The symptoms include insomnia, headaches, fatigue, memory loss, and depression, all within 1,500 feet. Also is shown blood cell abnormalities, DNA damage, cancer, and hormone imbalance. I want to thank Cindy Russell with Physicians for Safe Technology for allowing me to use her slides in this presentation. This is a schematic of 5th generation wireless. Satellites high in the sky, and there are now over 20,000 satellites that have been launched to provide internet services to remote areas all over the world. Those satellites will be communicating with these tall macro cell towers in one shown in the back of this diagram. These towers are going to be using massive MIMO communications, multiple input and multiple output, which means much more higher speed and more connected transmissions that will be going from that tower to and from fixed wireless antennas on the tops of buildings, small cell towers throughout streets, neighborhoods every 300 to 1,000 feet, smart offices, smart street lights, smart cars, smart homes, and smartphones. And down in the bottom on the far right, there's a little black box called fiber. The wireless industry uses a lot of fiber for transmitting signal. We don't realize that because it's all underground. And they're using fiber that has been dark, that is not having been used for a while by the municipalities. The municipalities had intended to install fiber optic networks, but somehow that plan fell aside and we went wireless instead. There's quite a story behind this. It'd be so much better if the municipalities were to deploy a fiber optic network to provide services to the premises without going wireless. Here's a diagram of the Internet of Things that was designed by the U.S. National Institute of Standards and Technology. NIST envisions a future where literally every object that we can see, that we can conceive of, would have a sensor in it that would transmit data about its use. So the transmissions are basically machine-based, and they're about us and our consumer behavior, and they're not benefiting us, at least not directly. Maybe they'll get us to buy something. But this whole network and 5th generation and the Internet of Things is a machine-based language to collect data and profile us and store it in some type of data hub on the planet. and it will affect every economic sector. But the public is not protected, and we're on our own. Local government, they say their hands are tied. Ever since the passage of the Federal Telecommunications Act of 1996, which had a provision which stated that no state or instrumentality can deny an antenna permit application based on environmental and health concerns. That provision of law needs to be repealed. There are known health and safety risks. We are losing our privacy. There are major cybersecurity risks that are not being addressed. We are seeing property value loss where there are antennas nearby, and we're in danger of losing our very form of governance, our democracy.